Hey, welcome back to another Patreon tutorial. In this one, I'm going to be showing you guys how I made this sort of like flowing liquid tree thing. Well, the trees themselves aren't liquid, but the way that they're moving is sort of this like flowy liquid way. It was kind of an experiment I made a while back, and it's actually pretty easy to do. So I thought it would be a good tutorial just because the results are really fun, and I'm trying to make some beginner friendly or intermediate stuff, and I think this is a good one. So let's get started in Houdini. So the first thing, let's drop down a geo, and let's just call this, let's see, flow sim. Cool. Okay, let's dive inside, put down a box, and it's gigantic. And I want this to be really skinny in the Z. So let's put this to like 0.001, something like that, right? Maybe, yeah, okay, cool, 0.001. And then I want to use points from volume. And basically that just takes the volume of whatever object you give it and just gives it a bunch of points. And I'm just going to bring this down, give myself a lot of points. How many? I want like, no, let's try like 0.0025, something like that. How many points is that? 160,000? Let's start with that. Okay, cool. The next thing I want to do is I want to create a noise on this. And there's a few ways you could do it, but I like to use mops sometimes just because it's super easy. So let's use mops, noise, fall off. And if you don't have mops, you should definitely download it. The stuff that I'm using in this tutorial for the mops is free. So just go get it. You could of course do this with a point VOP, you know, and use a turbulent noise or something in the color or whatever. It's really easy to do, but I just like using mop stuff sometimes, especially for this, because it's really just simple. Okay, cool. So, let's go to the noise tab here. I want to use something like maybe sparse convolution, and let's increase the frequency, maybe the amplitude a bit, and let's go to the remap, hit fit, and let's play around with these a little bit because I want some spots where it's so the blue is going to be 0 and the white is going to be 1, and I want something like that maybe. Let's maybe increase the frequency just a bit more. Okay, that's cool. But we can adjust it later. But I just wanted to just get a basic noise. Okay, then the next thing I want to do is basically what I'm gonna do is feed this into a flip sim. So this is gonna be my starting points, my starting flip sim, and I'm only gonna simulate this like thin plane here. And what I wanna do is I wanna make it so that the areas that are the darkest, that have like a value of 0, which is the blue, have like a different density than the ones that have a value of 1. So that like one part of the liquid's really heavy and the other part is really light. So that when they mix, they'll just make this like swirling pattern. So it's pretty simple to do. All we have to do is assign different viscosities and densities to these. So first, let's just put down a wrangle. And don't worry, we're not going to get heavy into code here. We're just basically making some attributes. And I want this wrangle to only affect the particles that have a value of, so if you look at the thing here, the graph, the mops fall off goes from 0 to 1. So I want half of these to be affected. So what we can do for group is just go at mops fall off is less than 0.5. 0.5. So anything less that has a value of less than 0.5 here is going to be affected by these these attributes I'm making. So let's initialize a few attributes. Let's go f at density equals, let's say 1,000 for now. And I'm just making these numbers up. F at viscosity equals 0. So, okay, I've basically set up two attributes, density and viscosity. You can see it down here as viscosity is 0, density is 1,000. But it's only affecting half of these. Okay, let's duplicate this and plug it in. And then let's just come up here and change this little bracket thing to the other way. So at mops fall off is greater than 0.5. So now this is affecting the other half. And let's change these numbers. Let's change this to like 1600 and let's give it a viscosity of 2. Okay, these are just arbitrary numbers I'm putting in for now. Okay, and then let's put down a null, and I'm going to color it black. And if I'm going to use this trick that Sean, one of my Patreons, showed me. Let's see if it works. If you hold Control and click the color, now anytime I drop a null, it should be black. Hell yeah! Thank you, Sean. That's amazing. Okay, cool. So let's call this out particles, or let's call it in particles, because it's going to go into my sim. Okay, cool. So we've got that. Now let's plug this into AdoptNet. Now you may be wondering, why am I doing this with AdoptNet instead of a flip solver? Because in the newer versions of Houdini, they're kind of moving towards these, having like all the pyro and the flip and everything in these SOPs here. The reason I'm doing it this way, the old way, is because I honestly couldn't find the parameters that I needed in the flip solver here. So they've kind of wrapped everything up in here and exposed a lot of what you need up here, but they haven't exposed everything. And so for basic flip simulations, you know, this SOP method works really well. But for something like this, where you need to there's a few little parameters you need exposed, I think there's probably a way to do it in the flip solver. I'm sure that there is. I just don't know it. And so I just found it a lot easier to just set it up myself the other way. So we're just going to do that. And we'll call this, let's leave it AdoptNet 1. Okay, so we're going to come inside. Let me just copy this, by the way. And we're going to come inside. We're going to we need a flip solver. Plug that in. And we need a flip object. Plug that in here. And we need a gravity. Okay, that's pretty much all we need. Okay? And then this is giant. Don't worry about this yet. So we'll come to the flip object. And the input type I want is particle field. And then the SOP path, I've copied my null, the object flow sim in particles. I just copy this and paste that there. Okay? And then I want to make my particle separation be equal to the particle separation I have on the points from volume. So I come up here and I just right click and go copy parameter. Where are you? Copy, right there. Okay, and then come back in and we'll go paste relative references. Cool, now it's exactly the same. The other thing I want to do is if I back way out, you can see my simulation domain box is like gigantic. I don't want it to be that big. I want it to be exactly the size of this square here. So I want to go up again and go to this box and right click here under size and go copy parameter, and that will copy all 3 parameters. And then I want to come back here and highlight the flip solver and go to volume motion and box size here and just go paste relative references. Now, let me just zoom in. It's exactly the same size as our simulation, as our little square here, okay? A couple other things I want to do. I don't like visualizing it like this. So let's come into the flip object. Let's go to guides and particles. And instead of visualizing it as sprites, let's do particles. Makes it a little easier to see for me. Okay, cool. Let's just hit play and see what happens. Great, it all falls down. So it is working, it's doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, but there's a few things we need to change. Number 1, in the flip object, we need to hit closed boundaries. So that will then close off this little square so that it like collides with it. There, like that. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to come into the flip solver here, and we need to, let's see, I want to go to particle motion. I want to make sure I add an ID attribute. This is really important for later on because we're going to use these points. We're going to instance a bunch of trees to it. And if you don't have an ID attribute, every frame, the trees are going to move around a bunch. So you need to have an ID attribute. And let's add an age attribute too. And I'll show you why later. Under the reseeding, let's change the particles per voxel to 16. That'll just give me more particles in there. And then volume motion, here's the real thing. We need to come to viscosity and go enable viscosity and viscosity by attribute. So what that's gonna do is tell this solver to use these attributes that I already set up. If I don't enable that, it won't actually read these. It won't do it. Okay, and we need to do the same for density, enable density by attribute. So now, let's see what happens when we hit play. We click this little stopwatch. It should swirl around. So the areas that are more dense and more viscous, these sort of broad areas here, you can see they're not swirling as much. And then these really non-viscous areas with a higher density or with a lower density float to the surface. That is exactly what I want. Okay, and actually, I think I like looking at it better out here because I can see the color differences a little better. So cool, that's pretty much it. The effect is very simple. Now I can show you a few things we can do to sort of play around with it and get different results. So one thing I want to do is come into this flip solver and change this from splashy to swirly. And that gives me more, instead of being, well, it's exactly what it says. Instead of being more splashy, you get these more like whirly, swirly vortices here, which I think is, for this thing that we're going to be making, is going to work a lot better. Let's see how many particles I have. Great, 97, perfect, okay. I've got age, color, dead, ID, life, p-scale, viscosity, V. Okay, good. I've got pretty much everything I need. So what we can do is let's try changing a few things. Let's come up to here and let's take this density here and let's make it like 4,600. Let's see what that does. It should. Some of these should like swirl up faster, sorry, they're heavier now, so the heavier ones sink a lot faster. So the heaviest are also the most viscous. So these like white areas, they're falling down quickly, but they're not really like breaking apart because they're really viscous. So that's kind of cool. I don't know, maybe I kind of think I like 1,600 better. Let's try making it like a viscosity of 10. Let's see what that does. Like, so it should be like practically like glue. So these white areas practically won't move at all, but these blue areas are going to try and swirl and fill in the cracks around it. So what I'm going for is I want, because we're going to be up close on this, we're going to be like really close, and all of these points are going to be trees. And I want some areas to be kind of moving slower and some areas to be moving quicker. So I think what I had before was pretty good. Viscosity of like, let's try like 1 here, and I like, let's see. Yeah. I don't want it to be too viscous because I want these to be able to break apart and sort of have these to be able to have the less viscous areas eat their way through it. Great. I think that's doing what I want. Great. So what we can do is we can cache this out. So let me put down a .io or .import. Where are you? So here we go, got .import field, and I want for my DOP network, just drag this in, and my DOP node is called flipObject1. So let's just copy that name, come back up here, and then I want presets, I want particles. So that brings it in. Let's call this flip particles. And then I want to make sure I've saved it to my $job, which I always set up. And then I think I want 240 frames, not 480. So let me just cache this out, and then I'll pause it, and we'll see where we're at when I come back. Okay, we're back. It's super quick. I mean, this is a basic sim. There's not a whole lot of particles. So you got it now. You can scrub through. Got this cool looking thing. Great. And I probably won't use all of it. I'm probably going to end up retiming part of it so that it moves kind of slow from here to here. Okay, so actually let's do that now. Let's retime it. So drop down a retime node, and I want to make this input frame range 240, and let's decrease the speed to like 0.4, and then scale velocities and bring this to subdivision and see what that does. So let's see how I want to get it to be nice and slow. I'll run a flipbook here. All right, so I got this flipbook. It's moving nice and slow. So the thing is, I think you definitely want to slow it down with a retime, because otherwise, just like it might look cool at this scale, but we're going to be up really close to this. In order for it to feel very large, like a huge landscape, you want things to be moving slower. So I probably want it to be moving even slower than that, actually. I might reduce this down to like, let's go like 0.15, and let me go like 420, so I have, or 480, so I have more frames here. And let's see what that looks like. Let me run a flipbook and let me get in nice and close and just see. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So this is at like 0.15 speed. I think that is much more like it. So I may adjust it later, but I think that's going to give me the result I want. Cool. So let's call that good for now. We can always adjust it later. Great. So the next thing I want to do is I want to turn this into a landscape. How the hell do I do that? Well, let's first put a transform here. And let's just flip this bitch 90 degrees so that it's flat. Okay. And I want to stop visualizing mops fall off. Or, well, never mind. Actually, let's visualize it like that. It looks way cooler. Okay. Great. Let's, what do I need? I need normals. So let me add a wrangle. Or let's just do attribute adjust vector. And the attribute name should be n. And I want to add direction and length operation is set initial and the constant value of 1 in the y. So basically, this is just adding point normals. So they all point upwards in y. I want them all to be like that. Great. Okay. And I've got n. Cool. I'm going to stop visualizing this because it's a shitload of points. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to make my landscape. So this box is 1 by 1 by 0.001. So let's make a grid over here that is 1 by 1. I want it to be the same size, right? Cool. And let's give it like 500 by 500, something like that. And then let's put down a mountain sop. And cool, let's just do like element size. Let's make it a lot smaller. Maybe bring the amplitude down a bit. Something like that. Let's see, I want to be able to, because I'm going to get in close and I want to be able to like have some craggy mountains. Maybe it needs to be more. And let's try different noises. Let's see, simplex, let's try sparse convolution. What does that do? That one's kind of nice. Let's bring the element size way down though. So let's just try and, I mean, we can always change this later, but I want something that looks like, because we're going to be like really close, and I want these mountains to feel like it's a mountain range that goes on forever, and we're going to fly a camera through here really slow. So something like that seems decent. Maybe bring these down a bit. We can offset it. Ooh, no. And what is, okay, let me try another noise just to be safe. Let's try simplex cloud. What's that look like? Oh, that's kind of cool. Alligator? Nope. Perlin. Oh, Perlin's kind of nice. Maybe let's bring the element size up. Yeah, that's better. Gives me, there's like a valley here. It's kind of cool. Let's see where I could kind of think about where I might put my camera. Something like this. So I have something in the foreground kind of passing by, and we move towards this other mountain. Yeah, that seems cool. Okay, the other thing I want to do is I want to isolate the edge and move it upwards so that I don't have this like gap here, because I want to be able to fly a camera through and make this look like it's going on for forever. So let's make a group, and we want it to be edges, or let's make a point group actually, and let's go turn this off. Let's go include by edges, and we want it to be unshared edges. So that's going to grab just the outside, and then we're going to call this edge. Okay, and let's put down a soft transform, and the group I want to transform is called edge. And let's bring the soft radius back a bit, and then let's just bring this up like that, and maybe increase the soft radius a little more. So that way when we're kind of in here, it doesn't look like it just ends. So here it is without, and you can kind of see this like hard edge, and then let's bring it up. So then it kind of looks like there's like more mountains in the distance or something. So it just helps a little bit to get rid of this just like empty space with nothing behind it. And maybe we bring this up even more. I don't know. Play around with it. Cool. All right, so we've got our landscape for now. Oh, and let's one thing I forgot on the grid here. Let's put a UV project. Just put some UVs on it just in case. Great. So now we should have UVs on there. Okay, and we probably won't even be able to see the land, but just in case we want to texture it later, let's just put some UVs on it. Great. Okay. So how do we turn this into this thing? Or how do we get it to match up with this? Well, first let's move this up a bit, like that. Okay. And then we're going to use what's called a ray SOP. And if you've never used the ray, it's great. Basically, it allows you to take points and it just draws lines from those points in a direction that you define. And then as soon as the point hits an object in front of it, it sticks there. So here's the ray points, and then this one is the collision the primitives. Okay, so it's not working obviously yet because we need to change something. We need to go method is, I think, minimum distance. And we want it to be, no, that's not what I want. I want project rays, and I want it maybe reverse rays. Yeah, there we go. So basically it's using the direction, it's getting the direction from the normal. And the normal, remember, we defined is the Y direction. So it's pointing upward. So if I hit, let me turn this off. If I go from the normal, it's pointing upwards. So it's trying to find a collision primitive above it, and there's nothing up there. So I have to hit reverse rays, so it just gives me the reverse. So now they're stuck to this thing. Okay, and it's interesting that it's not, I wonder, it's interesting why there's this gap around it. So maybe let's try increasing this grid scale. Like I don't want this like rim. So let me try increasing this by like the tiniest amount. There we go. Cool. So now these are all stuck to this landscape, right? So let's come in here. I can kind of zoom in a little bit, and let's template this so I can see it. So I have a little bit better idea of what's happening. And let's just run a quick flip book, and I'll show you, you'll have an idea of what's happening. Okay, so I've got this flip book here. You can kind of see what's happening. So the fluid is still doing exactly what we made it do earlier, but now it's just stuck to this mountain surface. So now we can use this to instance a bunch of trees or plants or whatever the hell you want to instance. It doesn't need to be a landscape. You don't have to copy this exactly. Do whatever you want. But now it's going to be flowing across the surface. And now as I'm seeing it, I'm realizing it's probably still too fast. Like these broad areas are moving at the right speed, but especially like right here towards the end, it's coming in really, really fast. So I think I might want to slow it down even more. So I really like this here, like 240 to frame 432. I'm really digging that. So maybe I'll just do a time shift here, or I'll do a retime, and we'll go, the input frame range is 240 to, let's say, 480, and I want this speed to be like 0.3. And again, scale velocities, subdivision. Let's see what that does. Let's see if that does anything better. Run another flipbook, and we'll see. Okay, so here's the new flipbook with the new speed. I'm feeling like this is a lot better. I may adjust the speed again later, but I would suggest, since this flipbook took like 10 minutes to make, just because it's like trying to ray and trying to retime. So once you get the speed you like, you're probably going to want to cache these points out again. But I'm kind of I'm digging the speed of this so far. So I think we can move on and we can adjust this later if we want to. Cool. So just hide that for now. Okay, so we've got our deal here. What do we need now? Well, we need to put some instances on here. We also want to randomize a few things. So let me see. Let me click this orientation button. Nothing. Okay. Click the normals. Jeez. All right, turn this off. I only want to see the normals on this, and the normals are like gigantic. So let me come in here and go to, just click this. Mops fall off. Let's turn off soft fall off, turn off mops fall off. Let's visualize a marker, and the marker is going to be called normal, or actually, never mind, cancel that. What am I doing? If I just go to D and I go to, where is it, guides, scale normal, this is what I want. I just want to bring this way down. That's what I'm looking for. So I just want to be able to see generally what direction they're pointing in. I don't need them to be like super tall like that because it's really distracting. So they're all pointing straight upwards, which is generally what I want, but I want a little more variation. So let's put down a mops randomize, and let's try a randomize orientation. No, actually, let's do attribute adjust vector, and the vector I want is n, and what I want is adjust with noise, and let's do 0 centered. Let's bring the element size way down. I want this to be like super small. So you can see the noise. I'm just varying it up a little bit. So, okay, so now they're all kind of pointing in different directions. I don't want them to be varied that much. I just don't want them all to be pointing exactly straight. So if I remove the amplitude, it goes back to where I was, just straight up. But if I put just a little bit there, and then I want to make sure, I think that, hopefully this doesn't change every frame. Let's see. That should do it, but let's just see. So I'm noticing that I may have made a little bit of a mistake here, but I have found the cure. So if you look at these normals, they're kind of waving around every frame. They're jiggling, and that's going to make my trees be like super jiggly, and I don't want that. So what I do want is, instead of using this attribute adjust vector, I want to put down an attribute randomize. And the attribute I want to randomize is orient, which I don't believe we even have that orient yet. So you can see by visualizing, if you click this little button, you can see the orientation. And I want the dimensions to be 4 because it's a 4-dimensional attribute. Okay, so right now, they're completely randomized. So if I copied a bunch of trees to these, some of them are going to be upside down, they're going to be sticking all different directions. What I want is to change this to inside sphere, and then cone angle. And then I want to make the direction, I want it to be 1 in the y. Okay, so if I bring this down to 0, all of these are going to be facing upward, which is that's like originally what I had. So, but if I just put just a little bit in here, you can see they start to randomize a bit in different directions, and that's what I want. Now, the other thing that's really important is under this Options tab, you want to click the seed attribute is ID. So remember, we set an ID attribute on our particles up here, so that was what was causing the jiggling before, is because there was no seed attribute on the attribute adjust vector. So this will now stick on there. So if I flip book this, you can see that these will not move around. Okay, so here's what it looks like now. You can see these are moving with the flip sim, but they're not like waving back and forth. They're not wiggling anymore, and that's what I want. I want them to stick. Okay, cool.